a rule to not allow players from the NFL to play at a Big Ten school. Anyone who declares for the NFL draft and did not withdraw, appeared on an NFL roster, or signed a contract with the Pro League cannot be on a Big Ten roster. This further proves my point about what I said on the bridge about the SEC. That what they did last night was just for optics. You could have done what the Big Ten apparently is doing right now, except you have a problem at LSU, and this is self-governance. You don't need breakaway. You don't need anything. This is the Big Ten going, hey, we don't want to do this. Now, I guess somebody could sue and say, well, wait a minute. I don't think you can do that, but this appears to be what the Big Ten is willing to do. Scott Snyder, who's been a guest on our show before, the lawyer who we turned to in the Brendan Sorsby stuff, he's going to join us in a little bit. He thinks conference self-governance is the way to go, and he's not quite sure that anybody from the NFL is going to play at LSU. So we'll chat with Scott coming up in the next segment about this. Matt Michelle will join us at about 10:35 for his weekly visit on the program as well. So we'll get to him a little bit later. But yeah, the SEC did I guess I don't call them conference calls anymore, Zoom or whatever, with presidents last night over the NFL players, and you know it's not good. You know, we don't want that. While a member of the conference is taking one and likely another player that was on an NFL roster, and while the basketball coach at the school, with a favorable judge that they knew was going to give them a ruling to declare someone that played not in an NBA game, but was on two different NBA rosters and didn't play last year professionally, mostly because of injuries, but last played as the Big East Player of the Year in 2025. Because, like I said on the bridge with Kelly, Lane Kiffin and Will Wade are at LSU because it pays a lot of money. And clearly bringing back Will Wade to LSU meant, hey, it ain't nothing about ethics or morals. I mean, we'll take him back. It was money, and it will provide you with the resources to win. And what happened along the way was, hey, we're going to need some judges to give us favorable rulings. And there's no question the power people of Louisiana said, hey, tell me something that's hard, right? Tell me something that's hard. Chris, you should like what the Big Ten apparently is willing to do.
Yeah, we'll see if they follow through on it.
Here's my question. Ready? So, if this ends up being formally voted by the Big Ten today, does the ACC and Big 12 do the same thing?
Yes, I think once you get that first domino, then it kind of sets in motion for others to follow suit.
And if I was the American, I wouldn't do it. Why? Because I would welcome the players. Yeah. You know why? It's coverage that you're not going to get otherwise. So, again, we'll talk to Scott Snyder next segment.
Did you see what Ryan Day said before the Big Ten just voted on this?
I did not.
If there are teams that have some players out there who are cut from NFL rosters that are going to be on other teams, we have to at least consider it and look at it. Do I like anything about it? Absolutely not, but we got to do what's right for Ohio State.
No, right, which means you don't have to sign the players.
Well, we're going to look at it because it might be right for Ohio State.
No. No, because that's called talking out of two sides of your mouth. You could sit and say, we like what we got and we like what we're doing at Ohio State, and we're not short on talent, and I like my team. You don't have to do something that you don't think is right.
But he just said we have to look at it.
Why?
That's what he said.
No. I'm role-playing here with you. My comeback will be why. And if your answer is because those that we compete with are doing it, that's a weak answer. That's not leadership. That's not leadership. Okay, you're paying as good, if not better, than everybody else in the country. You built a roster that you believe is really, really good. If you don't think it's right to go sign those players, then don't. If you say, well, the teams I'm competing with, so what? Again, our problems exist in college sports because of that. Okay? And I think Ohio State's one of the few teams that can win the national championship. And, Ryan Day went from 6 hours from being fired to winning a national championship. You don't have to do what everybody else does. That is how we got here, because everybody started doing things that they didn't really want to do because they said, well, I can't win if I don't do it. But at this level, he's fine. Okay? He's good. Don't do it.
I agree.
Don't do it.
And
Indiana's trying to get 2 defensive linemen back from last year's championship team to play. Kurt Cignetti doesn't have to do it. Now, those guys, every case is different, but I'm still sick and tired of hearing that part of it. Okay? And again, Lane Kiffin is not wrong when he said yesterday these individuals got a court ruling that makes them eligible. He's not wrong. He told you. Listen, I got more respect, even though I don't have a lot, when he says, we made the decision to go and recruit these guys because they got a ruling that allows them to be eligible. If you want to take that away, which the SEC can say, no, we're not going to do that, okay. That would be the adult thing to do. No one's forcing Kiffin to sign these guys, but he wants to. He's telling you, these are my true colors. This is who I am. I'm going to do this.
I don't know how you're not more frustrated with these judges.
Chris, of course I'm frustrated. There's nothing I can do about it. And I'll ask the next guest coming out with us. They're just like us. Meaning they're human with fandom. And in a world that they're supposed to not take that into account, they do. Good God. It doesn't matter what you want to look at. People become conflicted. I'm reading this story yesterday again about the R.J. Lewis kid from the Big East that now is going to be eligible to play at LSU, okay? Will Wade, according to people that cover LSU, has been telling players, we've got the judge to give you the ruling. I just need you to get here. Where do you think that came about? Somebody said, we got the judge. Don't worry about it. Just get the player here. I can't do anything about that. That should be a judge that says, no, you guys agree to these rules. But then it gets cloudy. Anyway, let's get to everybody's favorite segment.
It's almost like an unwritten rule that when you become a father, you become king of the bad dad jokes.
What is Forrest Gump's password? 1Forrest1.
Are you ready to laugh? We know at least one person is. Here's CB's dad joke of the day.
That's so great.
I'm pretty ripped today, by the way. Look tight. Go ahead. Lift session yesterday, man. Pretty good.
Wow.
Speedy, I'm sure it's going well. Go ahead.
Mark, why did the scientist take out his doorbell?
I don't know, Chris. Why did the scientist take out his doorbell?
He wanted to win the Nobel Prize. Nobel.
Better than yesterday's joke. I'll give him that much. Better than yesterday. Today's Double Shot Tuesday theme: when the lead singer isn't the most famous person of the band. I mean, people know, but you
Badass song.
know. Our next guest has been kind of joined us before when we talk about the Brendan Sorsby case, everything happening with eligibility. Scott Snyder is on X or Twitter at @EdLawDude and focusing on things like education, employment, law. It's never a dull moment. We get to join on the stream here, so grab a cup of coffee and glad you're with us. How are you?
This is my third cup of coffee. I'm doing really well, buddy. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. It's a crazy morning because even as we're getting set for this to see the story that the Big Ten wants to set a rule that says we can't bring any NFL player, someone that left, declared for the draft, we can't bring them back. The ACC is expected to pass. Last night, the SEC presidents got on a call. So I'm curious, and I want to get to self-governance because you've talked about this and you think this is a path to go. But I guess my initial question is, if the ACC and Big Ten want to do this, why should I think that someone wouldn't go to court and say, well, wait a minute, you can't set this rule because haven't I been cleared by a judge to play? Can you now set this arbitrary rule? So let me throw another layer into all this.
Yeah. It's a good question. Hey, and first off, good morning. I didn't get to hear what your bumper music was, and I'm bummed about that.
AC/DC.
That's you hit the nail on the head there, man. Great guitarist. Yeah, it's interesting. We're at this point. You'd asked this question. We've had this conversation before about one of the problems with the NCAA model is because of the way that they're organized, they can basically be sued, in any state court in the country where any of their member institutions are. So you look at a case like the Daquan Wright, who was I think with the Cleveland Browns, and then lo and behold, of all the places in the country where he decided to file his lawsuit against the NCAA, he just happened to pick East Baton Rouge Parish, which is where LSU is, and got obviously a favorable result. Same thing with the basketball player as well. So, one of the arguments is, all right, well, that's a problem. That's a real problem for the NCAA, that they could be sued anywhere and frankly, in pretty sympathetic state court venues. Would doing this not at the NCAA level, but at the conference level, change that? And the answer is, yeah, probably so. I mean, there would be a limited number of venues that they could bring claims in, and probably a little more conference friendly. The conference could get out in front of these things by having mandatory arbitration provisions, all that sort of stuff. So at the conference level, are they better situated to deal with these challenges? And again, if you look at the eligibility problem as primarily one about I can walk into any state court and get some sort of judgment, and I get that in a venue that is favorable to a particular institution, this conference-based eligibility model might do a lot to solve that. Can I just make one other point on that, by the way?
Yeah.
And this is me going to be critical of the NCAA, which I think is pretty, it feels like punching down at this point. The other thing is, I just don't think the NCAA has been particularly good at articulating the rationale for why they're drawing lines where they are drawing lines. And I just think arguably that conferences would do a better job of doing that. So I think for all those reasons, that's probably where a lot of this is heading, unless we get the PCSA to pass.
But can I go back and ask you about judge hunting? Because my producer and I, Chris, have talked about this. Isn't there something to following the interpretation of the law where you're supposed to park your fandom? And how did this happen? And is it quite common in law? And on the sports side, we're somewhat new to this, where you just go judge hunting, because it just seems like all I got to find someone that loves our team, and I get a favorable ruling. Are judges doing a bad job here where they're not following what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, I'm going to be careful because I'll get in trouble. But look, I'm a litigator, and as a litigator, one of the I typically don't sue. I'm not a plaintiff's attorney. I'm a defense attorney. But if I were a plaintiff's attorney, one of the things I would be thinking about, one of the strategic decisions you make is basically positioning a case to have the right judge take a look at it. And in some instances, by the way, I mean, like in civil rights related matters, I want to position this maybe so that in a state like Texas, where we have very conservative federal courts, maybe I want to position this so that I can be in state court. So venue and judge shopping, or forum shopping is kind of the technical phrase we use, is always a super important consideration. And I'll back up a second. I mean, we're on X, by the way, the X.com or Twitter or whatever it is. One of the terms of use, as I understand it, is if we ever have a lawsuit against Elon Musk and Twitter, we have agreed to litigate that in his terms of use in a place called the Northern District of Texas, which is very conservative. And there's a reason for that. He has built in a form that it doesn't mean he'll always win or the company will always prevail, but which he feels is really best suited for him. So the long and the short of it is, in litigation, this is hardly unusual. But the NCAA has a very specific problem, which is because of the way they're organized, they can be sued in every state court everywhere where they have a member institution. That is the unique kind of almost fatal flaw the NCAA has that frankly the conferences wouldn't have.
Do you believe that one, and it may be two in a couple of days, of these players from the NFL, do you think they'll play at LSU this year? Can the conference do anything to stop them? Will they play, do you believe?
It's a great question. The issue for the SEC I'll focus on DeQuan Wright, is that there is an intra-conference rule about transfers and being cleared to go from one university to another university, and within the conference, and there's a window that they can only be approved of if they transfer during that window, and this transfer is out of that window. So the question that'll come up for the SEC is whether or not they decide, hey, we're not going to approve this transfer from essentially Ole Miss to LSU. And apparently, I mean, if you read what Ross Dellinger is posting, there's going to be meetings over the next couple of days. I assume this will be discussed. But the question will be, do they draw the line here? And it's sort of, Sorsby adjacent, like what the Big 12 does. Will they push on LSU and say, LSU, explain to us how this doesn't violate, X, Y, and Z bylaw? LSU will either say, hey, we're not going to play this guy, which I honestly think is going to be, I could be wrong. I suspect I am wrong. It would seem like the adults in the room would say, hey, look, we're all going to agree to abide by these bylaws. We're not going to play this kid. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen. So the question will be whether or not the SEC, number one, decides to enforce that rule here. And if LSU refuses to abide by it, the extent to which the SEC then goes, sort of like what the Big 12 did, goes to court and says, hey, we want a declaratory judgment, basically saying, we can enforce these rules, these bylaws at all the member institutions. If I had to guess, I don't know. I read that. I thought one thing, and then I read the SEC statement yesterday, and I kind of changed my opinion, which I thought was pretty lukewarm. I don't know that the SEC has an appetite to draw a line in the sand on this issue. It's different from Sorsby in the sense that, that was a gambling case. This is kind of a technical, it's an intra-conference transfer, but, he was with the Browns and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be, my hunch is at this point, just reading that statement from the SEC is I've kind of I've changed my opinion. I think he'll end up playing.
Quickly, 10 o'clock hour, WYGM Orlando, WJR HD2 Cocoa Beach. Marc Daniels along with attorney Scott Snyder. I don't know if there's a fix to this. And maybe when we get past this year, the 5 for 5, I think this is an awkward year because of what they did or did not do. But I'm curious, you're not big on collective bargaining. I don't understand how anybody thinks it would work. But I am curious, can we do multi-year deals and hold players accountable? Or do I have to have collective bargaining? Or can I sit across the table of whatever player and say, I'd love to have you. Here's what I'll pay you. It's a 2-year deal. It's ironclad. If you want out after year 1, here's what you owe us. Here's what we'll pay you. And everybody agrees to it. Because right now, as you know, it's one-sided. You can sign a multi-year deal, but that player can leave after 1 year. Why can't we do that?
Well, let me just say a couple of things. Number one, I'm a huge fan of collective bargaining in general. Mm-hmm. We just can't do it here, absent a change in the law, something I've made plain and repeatedly. No, the answer is, yeah, of course, you can do multi-year. We do this with coaches all the time. They have multi-year agreements without the benefit of collective bargaining. We could do that with athletes. And by the way, I'm well aware that there are some athletes that have multi-year agreements. The challenge is, if an athlete breaks a multi-year agreement, and think of like there's a case going on right now in Oxford, Mississippi on this. What's the penalty? And typically that's negotiated in something called liquidated damages provision, and penalty may have been a tell. It can't be under the law a penalty. It has to bear some relationship to actual damages. But the short answer is, yeah, we can absolutely enter into agreements with athletes that are multi-year. I think that will be the trend, unless there's some change in the fundamentals here. The question is, when an athlete breaks a multi-year agreement, is there an appetite to sue the athlete? And it sounds like more and more the answer is yes, and we're seeing this play itself out again at Ole Miss. And will a court find that these liquidated damages provisions, are they penalties that are not enforceable, or are they reasonable damages estimates, which are? And so we'll just have to wait and see on that.
My last question. This is, and I don't think this is a legal question, but before you came on, we were talking. Ryan Day, the coach at Ohio State, said, ideally we don't want to have to take these players, but we'll have to take a look at them. And I said, no, you don't. Adults in the room can actually act like adults, and adults can say, if you want to do that, fine. We're not going to do it. Presidents, ADs, commissioners can say, these are the rules that we originally agreed to. We don't have to do this. It seems like we lost our minds. I don't know when, a few years ago, where common sense didn't matter.
Well, yeah, and I totally agree with you. I mean, the challenge is, everybody, what they're incentivized to do is protect their program and their school, and the system be damned. And that times 100, is exactly why we're here. And the entity that is supposed to be concerned with the system at large is the NCAA, and it's largely because of the way, what we talked about at the beginning, has been neutered. And so then the question is, if the NCAA can't do it and you can't get legislation passed, who is looking out for the best interest of college football at large? And it has to be the conference. But yeah, it's the reality is everything like a Lane Kiffin does, you go, wow, that makes sense if all you're concerned about is what's best for LSU, which is frankly what only, there's a part of me that goes, that makes total sense. It's what Lane Kiffin or Ryan Day should be concerned about. But somebody needs to be concerned about the enterprise at large and have the means available to them to protect the enterprise at large. And I just don't think the NCAA has that anymore.
Scott Snyder is on X or Twitter at EdLawDude. He'll follow all these eligibility stories, and he's posting a lot. And by the time this is all done, we'll make you a star. Thanks for hanging out with us. I always appreciate the knowledge.
Brother, good to see you. Hey, go see the Odyssey. I'm doing my Odysseus influence beard here.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. I don't know where we're going. Like I said, this morning, the Big Ten is apparently moving forward in passing a conference rule that you can't bring players from the NFL, the ACC. Chris, what did I say last segment? How long before? It looks like the ACC and Big 12 will follow, but I don't know. We'll see. Crazy times.
I want to see how the SEC follows through with this. I know he had talked about.
Well, they're boxed in a corner to some degree.
Yeah. Now, I want to see if these players are actually going to play for LSU this season.
Well, Ed doubts it. I mean, Scott. Sorry, Ed Law, dude. Scott doubts it, but we'll see. So if you're a player at LSU and right now you're thinking, all right, so LSU just brought these guys in. I don't know if I'm going to be on the team. Do you still want to play if the players that they brought in actually can't play? I'm sorry, say this again now. If I'm on the roster.
So if you're on the roster.
I'm a tight end right now.
And your spot was just taken by one of these guys that's coming in from the NFL.
Yeah.
If they don't end up playing and your roster spot is granted back to you.
Oh, I've lost my roster spot.
Yes.
Well, which we don't know that that's happened yet.
But if that's the case, do you even want to play? Like, you were just willing to cut me.
Yeah, you want to play because if you got a deal to get money, you're not going to go find another place to go play right now. Yeah. And let me just say this. This is not as big of a problem next year. This was the institution of the 5-for-5 where the NCAA chose, and I'm not saying that they made the right decision here, to not make it blanket. And then that's when we had all these lawsuits. Next year, when the 5-for-5 is fully implemented, we will not have the chaos of the class of 23 because the rule's the rule. They're getting that extra year. So this chaos on this subject will subside a little bit. Doesn't mean we're going to end up with no eligibility lawsuits or things like that.
What's to stop someone? Because, again, all you need to do is find a judge. What is to stop someone from, say they go undrafted, 7th-round pick, and they get drafted by a team that's going to be bad that year?
Mm-hmm.
They still have one more year of eligibility left, but they've already
Meaning
declared.
They left after the 3rd or 4th year of college and
Correct.
have the 5th year.
Correct.
And they want to go back to a school whose conference said we're not going to accept players. Could they go to court and get it? Of course they can.
So I don't
find a judge.
This is never going to stop them.
Well, I don't know, but progress sometimes takes time. But the answer to your question is you go a judge hunting, as Scott said, which is it's not new. It just may be new to sports and eligibility rules, but going judge hunting. Remember, the judge in Colorado on Friday ruled that impacted everybody across the country. All of those players now have to go to a state court because the federal judge said, no, the state judge can go, no, you're good here. And that's why there are hundreds of suits about to be filed in states, including Florida, about player eligibility.
So if a federal judge said no,
You just got to get a state judge to give the temporary
How?
restraining order. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. 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 But, and the last point I asked him wasn't even a question. Scott, and you and I have talked about it. Sometimes it's okay to just make the decision that you believe is the right decision. Look, I don't want to get into this. I don't want to go sign 23-year-old guys that have played 3 years professionally. I think it's a dangerous slope. We're not going to do it. And somebody said, well, then we're not going to win. And that's where a lot of these people got themselves into this. And that's why, about Ryan Day, your roster's okay, dude, okay? You'll be fine, okay? If you don't add the one guy that's on an NFL roster right now, you're still in pretty good shape. Schedule's tougher this year than previous years, but you're still in pretty good shape. You can make that. It's presidents that tell their AD and coach, we're not doing it. Yeah, but no buts. This is our university. We're not doing it. And then those presidents tell a commissioner, we're not doing it. I don't need anything else. If the message of the commissioner is, you work for us, this is our position, we're not doing it. And if anybody does, you have our authority to penalize those schools to the highest possible penalty. Then what do you do? Well, we're going to go to court. Fine. We will penalize you with a forfeit. Well, I'll go to get a judge. We could do this all day, but our conference is taking a stand. I don't need that's all I need. That's all they've ever needed in all of these things. That's all anybody needed. And the first one to blink was Brett Yormark. Now, is this LSU thing going to lead to the next blink? Maybe so. This whole thing about court, easily resolved. Presidents make it clear. But here's the problem. Most of those presidents want to win. The president of LSU wants to win national championships. That's why he signed off on Lane Kiffin and the circus that comes with it. That's why he signed off on Will Wade and the circus that comes with it. Heck, the president, the governor of that state runs everything. But that's where it starts. You're the president at Florida? Brand new. We're not doing it. You tell John Semmel, don't even think about recruiting him. We're not doing it. The president of Ohio State, hey, Ryan, no. Well, no. A reminder. You work for us. That's all it takes. But they're as addicted to winning as anybody else. That's why it never changes.
And that's why, again, you need the judges to put their foot down and be like, no.
Well, again, we're dealing with a fraternity
it's the judges that need to take away the, what's the word I'm looking for?
Listen, I'm going to defend the judicial side to a degree because their argument's going to be that the NCAA made mistakes. And at some point, the judge says, look, this is, you made a mistake. And Scott talked about it. Again, I don't fault the NCAA for everything, but when they didn't blanket the fifth year for everybody, it opened up the can of worms for where we are. That's got nothing to do with the NFL guy. The NFL guy's, well, I didn't get the fifth year. I'm going back. It's like, wait a minute, you signed a contract. Well, to the NFL next, Matt Michelle will get us back to college football in about 20 minutes, and the BOS Sports continues. Sammy Hagar?
Hang on here. How about Van Halen back when Sammy Hagar took over? Can't drive 55.
Okay, hold on a second. Can't Drive 55 is from Sammy Hagar. When he joined Van Halen, that's not where the song's from.
I just grabbed a song.
I'm going to reject this. I mean, as someone that roomed for 3 years in college with the most obsessed Sammy Hagar fan and literally can sing the lyrics of every song that Sammy Hagar ever did, not that I'm proud of it. No. Van Hagar, which, by the way, I liked Van Hagar. I liked Sammy with him. But it would be Van Halen, not David Lee Roth. And if you put – now, if you're saying when Sammy Hagar joined Van Halen, he was the most famous guy, I still would tell you that Eddie Van Halen is Van Halen.
I'm just going off what the texters texted in.
By the way, when's that movie going to be made? Would you think somebody would do the movie of Van Halen?
Maybe when the fad kind of dies down, they could bring it back.
Okay. All right. Let me get to some NFL stuff here. This did happen yesterday before the show ended. Chris and I were debating about Deshaun Watson, whether it be named to start. I was wrong. Well, no, I wasn't wrong. I just said after the press conference, after the game, how could he name the starter? And then Todd Monken did this yesterday.
Deshaun is going to start against Jacksonville. Took in the full body of work over the course of off-season to training camp, to the games, the joint practice, and ultimately felt like to start the season on the road. Deshaun gave us the best chance to move the ball and score points. I mean, that's really what it's about. And felt that way going in the last game, but wasn't sure. And after we talked to the staff and after we re-looked at everything, we're going to go that direction.
Okay. Maybe there is something to what other had suggested yesterday. 2 road games to start the year, Jacksonville and Tampa. Maybe Shadur Sanders isn't well liked in the locker. I don't know. I still don't think I'll say the Browns aren't void of talent. I think the Browns' defense is actually fairly good. It's just their offense isn't going to be very good,
right?
Regardless. So Todd Monken said that. Anything you want to comment on what Monken said?
I mean, I told you I thought Deshaun Watson gives them a better chance to score. They're not going to win a lot of games. They're both bad at this point between Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. I don't think they're going to score a lot of points.
Right. So then Deshaun Watson did his thing, which clearly is
someone needs to take a mic away from him.
Well, wait. This was the team that said, hey, you're going to be announced the starting quarterback today. You're going to need to go out there and you're going to need to say something about Saturday's presser.
Well, then they need to prep him better.
Because this is how it went.
Everyone ready? Good. First off, I want to address the comments from Saturday after the game. I think just, human nature, just myself being very...
Right, so he went on to...
Clearly, didn't even apologize.
Clearly, they huddled and go, this is how you got to do this. And there you go.
Didn't even apologize. I let my emotions get the best of me, and I take responsibility for that.
Of course, I'm agreeing with you. This is the clear case where the team says this is what you need to do. Okay, we're going to name you the starter. You need to go out there because of how bad things went Saturday. We're going to need you to say this, whether you believe it or not.
Shedeur Sanders is starting by week 3, isn't he? Their home opener, Shedeur Sanders will be starting.
Oh, you've already gone to that one.
I'm already to that point, and I'm going to get to Deshaun Watson and on the mark, off the mark. But right. I think by week 3. Unless Deshaun Watson's 8 touchdowns, no picks, and the Browns are 2-0, Shedeur Sanders will probably be starting by week 3.
Is there any 0-2 scenario that he starts game 3?
No.
What if he plays?
No.
No. Well, then I'll say this. If you're just starting him because it's 2 road games that eventually going to go to Shedeur Sanders, then I'm not saying I was right, but I think my view is that Todd Monken's like, I don't care about what happens to this guy. And what we don't know is if Jimmy Haslam said, you're playing him because I'm paying him all this money. And Monken knew that when he took the job. So, can I play something else for you?
Yes.
We talked yesterday about the future of the NFL preseason and what's happened in joint practices and everything, can I play Dave Canales,
Yes.
the coach of the Panthers, who had this comment?
That's still up in the air.
Oh, I'm sorry. This was about whether he's going to play as starters in Game 3 of the preseason.
That's still up in the air. And honestly, we have a really intense practice planned with the Texans on Wednesday. So, depending on how we come out of that, and if we get the volume that we're looking for, the odds are they won't play. If between D'Amico and I, if we're not able to get the work that we wanted, there may be some early play for some of the guys, but we're going to kind of make that decision after the.
Why don't we just do the joint practice instead of games then? Why don't we just play it inside the stadium?
Well, what do you think about opposing coaches working together? That seems kind of weird to me.
For what? Well, why? All these joint practices are somewhat scripted.
I know, but I don't know. It just seems weird.
No, it's not. I mean, both coaching staffs get together and say, hey, we're going to script short goal line situation and we'll go, full 11 on 11. I'm just saying that the shift has happened where teams put a greater emphasis on these joint practices than the game. And if that's the case, then why are we still doing the game other than selling tickets? But teams are putting more importance in the Wednesday, Thursday, depending on when the preseason game is, the one or two joint practices than the preseason game themselves. So what are we doing?
Again, I think the point of the preseason is to get these fringe guys some reps to see who's going to make the back end of the roster.
I don't argue that, but I'm just telling you that they're telling you now out in the open that I care more about the joint practice. Somebody who I trust in South Florida told me the biggest reason why the Dolphins didn't play 4 starters on the offensive line against the Giants Saturday was blank. Do you know what blank is?
No.
They don't have anybody behind them, and they don't want them hurt. It's that bad. Said there is no second offensive line in Miami, meaning there may be some bodies there right now, but the decision was made on Thursday. We can't afford to lose anybody. So we're not playing. Caden Proctor played, 3 plays? And by the way, they didn't go well.
Why do you not have sufficient offensive linemen?
Because they're bad. There's a reason why teams are bad. Avoided talent. What do you mean, why? I mean, I wish the Giants had a better, offensive line themselves in recent years. Of course, a little trigger happy.
I didn't even push a button.
Yeah, they were afraid of losing guys, and the plan is pretty much the same this week because they can't afford to have any injuries.
So you're going to get your quarterbacks killed.
Huh? What?
You're going to get your running backs killed.
Nah, he's fast. He can outrun people.
You're going to tire out your defense.
Yeah.
Make it make sense.
By the way,
Good Lord.
the Dolphins are.
What is going on?
Chris, get your arm off of something.
I'm not touching anything.
By the way, last point about this. The Dolphins are favorites in one game this year, the home game against the Jets.
Yep, saw that.
And what is it? I think there's 7 or more point underdogs in 10 of their other 16 games.
10 of 16. Yeah.
Nice.
Will they win a game?
You're questioning a second win.
I'm questioning the first win, honestly.
Wow. Matt Michelle is next. Now Get a little cream here, huh?
Nicely done.
British rock band had that guy Clapton playing guitar in there.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, right. Today's theme of Double Shot Tuesday, these are bands whose singer, frontman, maybe not the most famous of all band members. Let's get to Matt Michelle.
This segment is presented by Bowegan's Beer Company.
Green inside.
Let's tackle the latest news from UCF and around the world of college football with the Orlando Sentinel's very own Matt Michelle.
Give him the Heisman now.
Hit up Matt on Twitter at OS Matt Michelle.
All right, let's dive into it with Matt Michelle, who joins us on the stream. If you're watching, follow his work at OS Matt Michelle. I'm going to give Matt a chance a little bit later. Promote if you missed the football preview section that the Sentinel put out. There's still a chance you can get it and check it out online. First, good morning, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing this morning, Mark?
I'm good, Matt. In the time that I started the show to where we are now, let's see. The Big Ten wants to pass a rule about NFL players, the ACC, the Big 12, and I thought the SEC embarrassed itself or whatever statement last time, and now they may be painted into a corner. So I'll throw a bounce pass back to you. Your thoughts on what we've watched the last couple of days and what's happening today, and what does Matt Michelle think about the latest eligibility gate?
Well, I mean, you knew this was going to happen. I mean, once you start hearing, NFL players, who are now, choosing to leave and go back to college, football, a guy who signed, with an NFL team and now wants to go back, you knew eventually this was going to become a huge deal. Then the SEC releases their statement last night, and it, really doesn't take a hardline stance. And that kind of, I guess, opened the door for the Big Ten and ACC and the Big 12 to really say, okay, now we need to take a really kind of hard stance at this and not allow this to happen. Eligibility obviously has become a huge issue over the last few months in the court systems. We're seeing so many court cases. The NCAA is losing them left and right. It just feels like every day, more and more cases are being thrown out there. This is just a mess. I mean, it's a mess, and it's at some point you just keep thinking, when's this going to stop? And it just hasn't. I don't think it'll stop, or I don't think we'll get some sort of maybe tightening of all this unless the leagues themselves actually say, no, we're not going to allow these things to happen. And you stand pat on that, and then you hope that everyone else, kind of follows suit.
We'll see. Chris and I were talking, an attorney earlier on, Scott Snyder, and I've talked about this. It's also as simple as the adults acting like adults and saying we're not going to do this, and maybe we're seeing this. I do find it's a little bit hypocritical, Matt, because if these three leagues, not the SEC and up to them, decide, hey, no, we're not doing this with NFL guys, we're okay with the European basketball player, though?
Yeah. I mean,
I just read this morning again, the 24-year-old center from Israel that Will Wade is adding to his international roster that brings his average age, if he gets eligible, to 23.7 on their roster. So we're going to say no to the NFL, but the European players sign multiple pro deals. We're still okay with that.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because we're all focused on football. Most of the country's focused on football, as you said. College basketball, meanwhile, is going, hey, yeah, come on, bring in the Europeans. We'll get as many of these. It's just this goes back to. I mean, I know I've harped on this for years, but I mean, it just goes back to the fact that the NCAA decades ago just dropped the ball on all this. Really could have sat down and said, let's all get on the same page. Let's make sure that we could see this coming. We could see things happening like this. But instead of actually doing something, they got wrapped up in other things. They got wrapped up in expansion and everything else that was going on. And I think they let this kind of fall to the wayside. And now all of a sudden they're dealing with it. And they don't know what to do. I mean, they're literally trying to figure out what's going on. I talked to attorneys this week, a couple attorneys this week, and I'm asking them what's going on. And they don't even know. They're just filing lawsuits left and right because they're trying to figure out a way to get their guys eligible to play. And now we got guys who aren't sure. Look at Cole Kozlowski, for instance, at UCF. Here's a guy who is on the practice squad. He was up practicing, was on the roster because he thought because of a lawsuit, he was going to get a ruling. He was going to get eligibility. And now he's ineligible, and he's kind of looking, what's my next step? What do I do now? There's a lot of players like that, on all the teams right now, figuring out what am I doing now? And no one has the answers. The schools themselves don't have the answers. They're just trying to figure out what's their next step to avoid being ruled ineligible or anything like that.
Let's move to football on the field. We actually will play games beginning in a couple of nights and games this weekend. John Summerall named a quarterback yesterday, and Aaron Philo is going to start for them. And Tramel Jones, he's. I like Summerall's off season, and yet I thought he was a little wishy-washy yesterday. And I know that they paid to keep Tramel Jones, they paid to bring in Philo at quarterback. I get it, but he's like, well, he's going to go with the ones and everything. But I don't think anybody's shocked by the decision in Gainesville, are they?
No, not really at all. I think that was the intent, I think that the follow is going to be the guy, pretty much from the start. But you got to, how, as we just talked about, with the game that's got to be played with coaches now, is you've got to make everybody happy. So you say, okay, well, yeah, this guy's going to start, but this other guy's going to get an opportunity. Terrell's going to get another opportunity. Maybe he'll get in some games. Listen, it's early in the season. I know they're going to get some chances, I'm sure, and they'll see what happens. No one is really ready 100% to commit unless they've got a dedicated number one, quarterback going out there. It's just an opportunity to say go out there and you got to continue to earn it. You got to continue to go out there and see what happens. And I think again for John Summerall, it's important for that offense to look good. It's important for them to put up some points. That's the thing that Billy Napier was getting harped on by all the time, was that their offense wasn't very good. So I mean, he's got to make sure the quarterback works with whoever he puts behind at center. They got to make sure that they're able to run their offense efficiently, because that's exactly what Florida fans want to see.
Part of your college football preview, you had an extended piece with Alonzo Barnett, the UCF quarterback. I've had a chance to know Alonzo a little bit now the last couple of months. I'm curious the things that you took away as he embarks on this season. He's an interesting story, from where he came from, and at James Madison, battling injuries, chose to come to UCF and, become the key part of their offense. So what's your view on Alonzo as he steps into the season?
I think for me, what's impressed me the most is just his poise and leadership. When you sit down with a young man and he's talking about the things that I think every coach wants to hear. He talks about being a good teammate, making sure that he's the voice in the locker room, making sure that he stands up and takes charge. He's not just kind of slinking back in the shadows. He's a guy that wants to be front and center. And it's not like Alonzo has not been there. We've seen it, as you mentioned, at James Madison, what he was able to do to lead the team to the Sun Belt Conference title last year and to go to the college football playoff. He's played on big stages. And I think that's something to me that I think is going to be key for UCF. Their quarterback position has struggled over the last 3 or 4 years. They really kind of missed some of that leadership last year in poise and I thought in the huddle at the quarterback position. And I think Alonzo gives them that. So you talk to all of the players around him. They love him. They love being out there on the field with him. They think he's a guy that's really going to kind of help elevate this program and get this team to where they need to be to contend. And those are all the right things you want to hear. And I think he's a young man, like you mentioned. He went through some hardship. He had an injury. He really battled back to get back. He wasn't guaranteed a starting spot when he came back from injury, and he proved that he could be the starter at James Madison and had success over a couple seasons. So it's something that I think will be interesting to see as we move forward. Is just that leadership and poise, trying to direct this offense when they need it to come down the field when they need points. With 2 minutes left, in the first half, you want to see that kind of leadership on the field.
Matt, we get to actually talk about some games.
Yes.
Florida State is going to play New Mexico State in the most important season, clearly for Mike Norvell.
Mm-hmm.
This is an important game in the sense of this is the prep for the biggest game for them. It's that Labor Day night game against SMU. So give me your thoughts as FSU steps into this season and really what's at stake the next couple of weeks. I'm not so much concerned this week, but the Labor Day game is a lot because I can't be fooled by momentum after beating Alabama last year, but that's a big game looming on that Monday night. So as FSU begins the season, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's just it. I think you look at Florida State, and we talked about this, I think, a month ago, not a lot of buzz surrounding this program here in the state of Florida. I mean, you're talking about Florida and Miami and UCF, and Florida State's really kind of not had that kind of distinction. So I think from Mike Norvell, it's, you've got to go out there. I don't say you have to prove something at New Mexico State, but you're going to have to get, to show everyone that this team is definitely taking the right step. If they struggle and win a close game in their opener, which they shouldn't, but again, then people start to wonder, okay, is what's going on here? How soon does Mike Norvell go on the hot seat watch, after that happens? So you can't look too far ahead either, as you mentioned, because you got to take care of business. And I think for them, it's really going to start out at quarterback with Ashton Daniels. I think they need to come out and have a really strong showing. The defense has to step up as well, and if they can do some of the good things and have an opportunity, let's say they beat SMU, and they get a good start, then I think that bodes well for Mike Norvell. If they struggle, they look bad, right away, everyone's going to start pointing fingers and saying it's time to get rid of Mike. So it's going to be a challenge, for the next couple of weeks, but it's something I'm sure he's thought about over this preseason camp, how they prepare for this opener and how they get ready to kind of move forward.
A little bit of an important game with the Big 12. If you're TCU, you don't lose to North Carolina, which has become just a train wreck as we get this next a game in Ireland. I don't know how interesting it is other than it's just football this weekend, but man, what a mess Carolina remains in. And because of that, if you're TCU, by the way, brings in a Harvard transfer quarterback, as their quarterback went to Indiana, but don't lose if you're TCU here, right?
Yeah, for sure. You want to go out there and have a strong start. And if you're the Big 12, you want this. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on this game. There's only a handful of games this weekend. You want to have a strong showing. You're TCU. You want to say, listen, you're Sonny Dykes. You want to start out strong. They brought in an experienced quarterback. They've had some issues off the field. They had some, that with a couple players, but I think they feel like this team has an opportunity. And if you're a UCF fan, this is a good chance to get a early look at TCU, see maybe what they bring. They're going to be here, in late September, for the Big 12 opener. So this is a big game, but you can't lose to North Carolina. I mean, North Carolina is a dumpster fire, and I'm wondering how much longer Bill Belichick's going to be around, whether he steps away or whether North Carolina decides to make a change, because they got so many problems and so many issues. So yeah, if you're TCU and you lose this game, I think it's not a good sign.
USC plays San Jose State. Not that they'll struggle here. What side are you on the USC? Do you believe that this is a big year for them? And I would think for Lincoln Riley, it's a big year, although he's got a number to buy him out if it doesn't go well.
Yeah. No, I think it's a big year for Lincoln Riley. I mean, especially when you look at this team, they bring back 14 starters. This is a really loaded offense. This is an opportunity really for Lincoln Riley, who's an offensive-minded guy, to go out there and put up a lot of points. You look at their schedule. The schedule kind of really works in their favor. They get Oregon at home. They get Ohio State at home. They get an opportunity maybe to really, make a big showing for them. And, they've struggled over the last couple of years. And, USC is not the USC that have known over the years, for them being the power that they've been. So for Lincoln Riley, it's about establishing yourself, especially when you think about the Big Ten. There aren't a lot of people right now thinking USC is going to do much, at least, contend for the Big Ten titles. So if you got to have an opportunity, you got to go out there and you got to perform, you got to put up a lot of points. And defensively, you got to find a way to shut some teams down, because you're going to get challenges. Like we said, this is not going to be an easy Big Ten conference schedule. So they're going to have to find a way to get some of those wins. But they do have those at home in the LA Coliseum.
I think one of the most interesting games of this week 0, it's an interesting G6 matchup. It's Memphis at UNLV. Charles Huff, who bounced from Marshall to Southern Miss to Memphis, just brought in Randy Shannon, I think, yesterday as a defensive consultant.
Yes.
And Dan Mullen at UNLV, and I think it's a very interesting game considering what Dan did last year, and to me, it might be one of the best games of the week.
Yeah, it's definitely one I'm going to be watching. Because you look at the fact that, listen, Dan Mullen did a great job back at UNLV when you went to UNLV. They've got an opportunity to have another strong season. Maybe they're that G6 team that jumps in the playoff this year. Because they have a lot of talent coming back as well. And there's a lot of buzz that if Dan can pull off another successful season at UNLV, maybe this opens the door for a possible return to a P4 program somewhere down the road. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of focus on them. And the Memphis situation is interesting as well, as you mentioned, with Huff coming as the coach. Memphis has always been a strong team, in the G6 for many years. Can they continue that stretch? Can they find a way to have some success? They're much like some other teams. They're desperate to try to get into a Power 4 conference. So to do that, you got to continue to showcase the fact that you can win football games.
By the way, Chris, do you see over Matt's left shoulder the blinking lights? Matt, is that from the Roth Tower tour, the lanyard?
Yeah.
It's still lighting up?
Yeah.
It's still lighting up?
That thing would shut off.
In like 2 days, yours is still working.
I did turn it off for a bit when I got home, but it's been on when I do for many of the videos I do now, because
it's not Christmas or Halloween lights. That's the lanyard that he got at the Roth Tower media preview. that they handed out. Yeah.
I didn't even realize they did that, to be honest with you, until they pointed out to the fact that it lit up. So I just thought it was a regular lanyard. So it's got
By
to
the way,
go
let
on
me
my
just
collection of lanyards.
I want to ask Matt what really matters. What's your thoughts on the new dining area in the Raw Tower? First off, they moved the media,
Yeah.
down. I
Yeah.
mean, you're now not near midfield or kind of towards the 20-yard line.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I like the setup. I appreciate the fact now that they put in some tables so that we can sit and have a meal away from our where our computers are and everything. That's kind of I've never been a big fan of eating over your laptop while you're trying to get ready for a football game. I do like the openness of it with the windows. I thought there was a lot of open air in that. The one thing that I laughed and joked with some of the UCF people was I would have really preferred a dedicated media elevator, but that's just me being a journalist who wants pie in the sky type stuff. But hey, listen, I'll take a table and a nice media meal any time of the week.
Do you want to hear a story about the elevators?
Yeah, sure.
Well, there's four. There's two on each
Yeah,
side coming
yeah.
up, right? At halftime they're taking two for the coaches.
Oh, really? So that's
Yeah, they each get their own elevator.
oof.
There's no service elevator either.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
So
So
that's
plan
gonna
your
be
halftime accordingly if you got to be moving up or down.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I
Yeah.
said, it's a gorgeous
Oh
facility.
no, it's great.
And I like what they've been able to do with it. I think people will appreciate it, and I'm really interested in seeing how they utilize it outside of football.
That
Maybe some
third
of the other
floor, the
events they're
third
going.
floor is really
Yeah,
sharp, right? Yeah.
third floor is really sharp, and I think you're gonna have a good thing. So I think I've been to a lot of stadiums, and I think it's up there. It's one of the better P4 type areas. So I think it's got great views. I think they did a great job of it. It's gonna and considering the fact they did this all in a year, that's
Oh yeah.
amazing to me. How they got done. So I was impressed.
Matt Michelle, check out his work. If you missed the high school college pro preview, you can still check it out online at OrlandoSentinel.com. Get the links by going to Matt on X or Twitter at OS Matt Michelle. Thanks, Matt.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care, guys.
Matt Michelle, some insight in college football. The 11 o'clock hour kicks off the news next.
Let's really do the news.
Yes.
Now it is time to do the news. But now it's time for the news.
11 o'clock hour, WYJ Orlando, WJR, HD2 Cocoa Beach. It's the Beat of Sports. Marc Daniels, Chris Vasquez is over there. Last night, SEC presidents got on a Zoom, whatever they did, and then sent out a statement that they don't think it's right that NFL players come to the SEC. They didn't make any decision to change rules. The Big Ten did this morning. The Big Ten is moving closer towards establishing a rule that will not allow players that enter the draft and then to an NFL camp in any form to come back and play in a Big Ten roster. Within minutes, the ACC and Big 12 also announced they plan on moving forward with something similar. It's still to be voted on by presidents, but now we'll see what the SEC does. Yesterday, Lane Kiffin made it clear that the players that were given a court release or a relief to be eligible, they will pursue. And it'll be interesting what happens now moving forward. Of course, I don't tweet that much to Beat of Sports, but I did say, so let me get this straight. It took Lane Kiffin doing this. Although Texas had an offensive lineman 3 weeks ago that was in an NFL camp, and no one said a word about that. And we are trying to say you can't do that with the NFL, but we've been cool with all the NBA G League guys coming back to college basketball. Where's the selected outrage here?
I was gonna say, does that tell you something about about who is doing it that makes them say, "Oh, you know what? I guess it's Lane."
But it's fine, and there's a lot to pick on Lane, but you can see the hypocrisy here. Okay?
Of course.
Like, anybody remember Charles Bediako at Alabama last year, the guy that played pro basketball, or the European players that are on their third pro contract or are coming to play college basketball because they can make more money? The outrage is because Lane running a tight end? That's what triggered this?
What makes it, because if the school like Vanderbilt, or you just mentioned guys from the G League coming to play college basketball in the SEC, what is it about Lane that finally made the SEC be like, you know what? College is for college athletes.
Because he's so polarizing when it comes to the media and fans in the fever-rich SEC that it becomes a big story. As big of a brand as Texas football is, adding a lineman that no one knows who played at Texas before, it's no big deal. But because this guy, there's footage of him in an NFL jersey at a camp, and it's Lane Kiffin, takes it to another level. As much as there's a fan base of college basketball, it's nowhere near college football. But if you wanted to get upset, and I'm telling you, college basketball is 5 times worse. It's worse in pay. It's worse in the pros. It's worse in the gray area of international rules. It's everything. So you're upset about Lane bringing a guy in? Like, there's only been, I don't know, about 400 or 500 European players that have had multiple pro contracts that have come to play college basketball, and now you're upset at Lane Kiffin? Come on, man. The big number, Cal Raleigh, 3 home runs last night.
Beat the Phillies, baby.
Yeah,
That's what I need.
Got that European package I got mailed into the clubhouse. Finally. Finally.
Now we're going to see him go on a tear down the stretch here. Is that what you're saying?
Just curious. Does Ned York and Bob Kraft just nod at the next owners? Jed, I'm sorry, not Ned. Jed York. Do they nod at the next owners meeting? So.
They probably exchange notes.
Or is Kraft like, come on, you got to know to do this. Like, what are you doing here?
They exchange notes.
To baseball, the Brewers are on pace to win more than 100 games this year. You know where they rank in home runs in Major League Baseball?
I'd say bottom third.
Last.
That's all right, technically.
They've hit 120 home runs. They're last. They're third in stolen bases. They bunt.
So it's small ball. Oh, my. Look at that.
They bunt.
Small ball actually works?
Well, let's not get carried away, but they bunt.
I believe they're pretty comfortable ahead in the
No, I like watching
Central.
the Brewers play. I mean, they're really, really fun.
They have the best record in baseball, don't they?
Yeah. No. Well, hang on.
I think they have a better record than the Dodgers.
You might be right. Let me see.
Yeah, I think they have the best record in baseball.
They are, yes, they're better than the Dodgers. They're 81 and 50. The Dodgers are 80 and 51.
Oh, so
yeah,
it is like small ball actually works.
They're fun. They're fun to watch. The second annual World Humanoid Robot Games underway in Beijing. Over 600 teams and 2,000 robots. When do they drug test the robots?
How do you drug test them?
It's a joke, Chris. Have you watched any of the highlights?
I've seen the one robot just running smack dab into the padded wall.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they're taking over the world. There's no question about it. It's just when. It's not if.
Cam Scadaboo taking notes.
It's just when. You should go click on the soccer game. Yeah. Go check that out. Dodgers Braves tonight, by the way, on TBS. And what else do I have for you? Red Bulls put together a go-kart race called Max versus 100. Max Verstappen's my favorite driver. And he'll start 101st against 100 people in racing go-karts. And how many can he pass? They'll have celebrities and other famous people in sports all take part in it. Max isn't winning F1 races anymore, so this is what they do. They put him in kart racing. By the way, on Monday, less than a week, Night Talk returns. We'll talk with head coach Scott Frost at 6 o'clock on Monday out at the Ale House, Miller's Ale House in Waterford Lakes. The show throughout the season will be on Wednesdays when we have a Saturday game. Because it's a Thursday game, that's why the show will be on Monday. But normally Wednesdays throughout the college football season for Night Talk from Miller's Ale House. More of the Beat of Sports next. So this is interesting with Kiss, because I maintain during the prime makeup years of Kiss, I don't know if I'd say Gene Simmons, but because of the reality shows and everything, he ended up becoming the most famous.
I want to defer to you on this.
Yeah. You don't go deep in the Kiss library?
Like the commercial stuff.
The theme of Double Shot Tuesday today is bands where the lead singer, frontman, is not necessarily the most famous member of the band for Double Shot Tuesday, 508-57. It's been a while since we had our next guest on. Jamie Say is the sports director, WKMG Channel 6 locally, and joins us this morning to chat about a few things. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, Mark. It's great to be with you. I'm doing well. I saw Kiss in concert. I think about 20 years ago.
No.
Yes, I did. I
With
did.
makeup
I
or
mean,
post makeup?
Man, it was post makeup. Oh wait,
Mm.
no. They had the makeup on. They had
Okay.
the makeup on. It was one of their several farewell tours.
Several.
Because they've had many
Yeah.
farewell tours. So this was in upstate New York, probably around 2008, 2009, something like that. But yeah, they had a zip line and everything. It was Kiss, and it was fabulous.
Oh man! All right, I reached out to you yesterday because I saw you respond to somebody on Twitter, and just a little bit of background for those that have followed the story. Obviously, the WNBA has dealt with a lot of headlines that have nothing to do with basketball these days. The topic of transgender athletes or transgenders, period, has become a hot topic. A lot of attention to Indiana because of Sophie Cunningham's position. And then Enos Kanter, now goes by Enos Freedom, has joined to the fray and appeared at a WNBA game recently, got in an argument with a player from Chicago, got ejected from that game. Linda Cohen, the longtime ESPN personality, put out a brief clip on social media. I want to play that, and then you respond, and I want you to kind of elaborate. So this is what Linda Cohen had to say.
Indiana scores 113 points, and sitting courtside, a former NBA center who wants to enter the WNBA draft next season. Yeah. Arguing with a Chicago Sky player before being kicked out. But this is no longer an isolated incident. Everywhere the Fever travel, the controversy surrounding Sophie Cunningham's comments seems to follow them. There have been rallies and counter protests in Seattle, in Portland, in Minnesota, in Chicago, in New York. Sophie has been booed. Fans have been confronted. And now the controversy has moved from outside the arena to courtside. The WNBA keeps saying it wants everyone to focus on basketball. Clarify your policy.
All right, that's what Linda Cohen had to say. And then you responded to Linda's piece. People can go see your tweet, but what was your response and your thoughts?
Yeah, I respect Linda Cohen so much. First off, just because, she was it. She was the role model for me back when I was in college, wanting to be a sportscaster. This was in the 1990s. But I said in my tweet, and I don't often tweet because I feel like Twitter is a very toxic space, but just all the negativity surrounding the WNBA has really gotten to me. So I wrote, this is the wrong take, Linda. I said, Kanter is nothing but an attention-seeking interloper who wanted to humiliate a professional women's sports league last night. And that's not supporting women. Because in another comment, Linda had said that he was there to support women in terms of, protecting women's spaces in sports against transgender women participation. So I just disagree with it. I try not to get caught up in the Twitter wars and the culture wars, but I've been following the WNBA since it started back in 1996. And I remember the toxicity around it when that league started and how sports fans, general sports fans, viewed it as less than. And now 30 years later, it's immensely popular, which is wonderful. And, the value of WNBA franchises has skyrocketed. The fame of these players is at its peak. But now you've got this cultural war that's shrouded the WNBA in negativity, a war that the WNBA has never asked to participate in. This came about because of comments in a July article that Sophie Cunningham made. And she's free to have her opinion. I have nothing against her voicing her opinion. But I went back and I read the article, and it was long, and it was a profile on Sophie Cunningham, and her words on on safe spaces for women in sports, were relegated to like 2 sentences. But all of a sudden it erupted, and it becomes the WNBA's problem. Now, this has led to more attention to the WNBA, which is great because now fans know, okay, wow, there's a protest outside this Fever game. Is this game on television? Maybe I'll tune in and watch it right now. But the WNBA never asked for this. I don't think you change policies during a season. So I think that take from Linda was wrong, too. Like, what sports leagues change major policies during the season? The NFL waits till after the season. And if they wanted to change their policy or add more words to it, you got to get a lot of stakeholders involved. You have to hear from the players. You have to hear from all the owners and all the executives that are involved. So it's not that simple.
I think the canner part, and somebody jump in, adults can have a conversation, agree to disagree, but have an open mind to learn. Cantor, that's not his objective here. And anybody that thinks he's the savior for that side is insane. There are other people that if you want to have an adult conversation with, you can do that. I mean, he's polarizing for a small group of people that think he represents a greater whole. I know the exact feature you're talking about, Sophie Cunningham, and my thought, Jamie, this is that 95% of the people that suddenly decided to have an opinion don't even know where it came from and think that Sophie every game is out there marching and screaming where she didn't ask for that. And left or right are saying, well, Sophie, what do you say today? And I have no problem. She's like, I don't say anything else. I answered a question and I don't have any other opinion. Why can you not have another opinion? And I'm like, why does she have to?
Right, exactly. And she came out and said, I think a week or two ago, that she's done talking about it. Yeah. She wants to focus on basketball. But then you have nimrods like Enes Kanter and Royce White who say, okay, we're going to declare for the WNBA draft. If that's not mocking a league, I don't know what is. He did it to seek attention, and Natasha Cloud is the player that went off on him, the Chicago player. Right. And, her anger didn't stem from him being just present at the game. Her anger stemmed from him making a mockery of the league, along with Royce White, when they made this big show that they were going to declare for the WNBA draft because they identify as women. And, they're mocking the transgender community by doing that, and they're mocking the WNBA. And it's like, why is it their business? Why do they care all of a sudden? Pardon my language, the guy's a jackass. And then, he's sitting there with his shirt, and his shirt is fine, whatever, behind the baseline so he can be visible. And then he approaches the court. He gets in front of the camera pool. So it's like any fan would get kicked out if it looks like you're breaching the court and harassing one of the players on the surface.
Let me ask you this, because I do think this league has struggled on a lot of PR fronts, not just with this. And you have a commissioner under fire who I would be shocked if she's back next year. Mm-hmm. I think this league has swung and missed on some things. I don't know the perfect way of handling this, but what's your thoughts? Because I do think as your league grows and as attention for the basketball grows, not the other stuff, you've got to take some hits. You're going to deal with some stuff. But what's your thoughts on how the league has handled some things?
Yeah, I mean, the league, there's been no statement by Engelbert, who, right. But she did create the task force to look into it. And, what the task force found was that no transgender women have ever played in the WNBA. There are not any now in the 30-year history of the league, none. But it's like during the off season, they really do have to look at themselves, create a better PR media relations team, have their executives more out in front of things because they're leaving it to the players to face these questions over and over again. And I think it's probably the players who want to focus on basketball. The coaches probably want to focus on basketball, but they also don't want to alienate any other fan base either. The fans that feel one way and the fans that feel another. So they've been stuck. But yeah, I mean, during the off season, there should be a reckoning in the WNBA when it comes to this issue and when it comes to the officiating, because the officiating negativity is legit.
I think on the transgender side, and maybe I'm asking for a society that doesn't exist. I think within reason, it's okay. It's okay to ask the question, but I think the problem that's happened is, and maybe it depends on where you sit politically, is you don't accept the answer. Like the whole incident that took place out in Seattle. You could say, "Look, I don't really want to get into what my thoughts, and I hope you can respect that." I'm here to talk about basketball. You may not like the answer, but too bad. Like some people think that every player of the WNBA has to publicly state their position on every social issue. We don't ask that of our male athletes. So if a WNBA player says, I'm here to talk about basketball, I don't have any interest in talking about that. That doesn't mean they're bad or wrong.
Right. And then they face criticism from trolls about not answering the question, like, oh, you're weak. Why aren't you standing up for X? Why aren't you standing up for X? Oh, you're wrong, just because you want to keep the questions to basketball or something else other than this hot button political issue that, in my opinion, is a molehill and not a mountain. Because there aren't a lot of transgender women trying to get into professional sports leagues in the United States. Like the NWSL doesn't have a policy on its books either. Yet that league has never had a transgender player, in its history, and currently it doesn't either. I mean, so it's like, come on, let's not weigh into these culture wars. Let them play and appreciate, and then go to the games and appreciate what you're seeing, because the basketball is great.
Let me end. How's Syracuse football going to be?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
I went through this. I went through the schedule. It's a tough schedule. What hurt Syracuse last year was that they lost their starting quarterback, Steve Angeli, to an Achilles tear, like in Game 4, and that just derailed their season. If they can come back healthy, we'll see. We'll roll the dice, but I'm not.
You're not selling me, Jamie, on the season here for Syracuse football.
Look, I am a realist. Hey, if they're 6-6 and they make a bowl game, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I do like Fran Brown. He's got an uphill battle and stuff like that. We don't have the NIL money quite yet. Upstate New York isn't exactly the hotbed of football talent. There's some great coaches up there, some great players, but just not enough. So, I'm a realist. I enjoy every win that we get, and can't be too disappointed. So
she's the sports director at WKMG Channel 6. Check her out for coverage of everything in sports. Good catching up, Jamie. Thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mark. Have a great UCF football season.
Thank you. Back with On the Mark, Off the Mark, our Tuesday staple next. I think Nikki Sixx is more famous and cooler at the time.
So we got the texter who said Tommy Lee clearly outshone Vince McNeil or Vince Neil.
Not even Nikki Sixx. Well, there's a period of time when he showed himself that. Yeah. Let's get to on the mark, off the mark.
It's a Tuesday staple on the beat of sports. On the mark, off the mark. Presented by Bowegan's Beer Company. Bowegan's, recrafting perceptions.
All right, kicking things off here on the mark, off the mark. Walker Jones, co-founder of the Grove Collective for Ole Miss, mentioned something about the FBI coming through and sweeping for bugs at the Ole Miss facilities.
We actually had the FBI come through and walk the building for bugs and for everything. Because,
really?
Yeah, we knew kind of what was in Baton Rouge, and
wow.
we knew
how they work.
When they operated. So literally, I remember getting on my knees and looking underneath the desk, like checking for like, is there some sort of bug in my office? Somebody was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "You just trust me. You don't know this guy like I do."
Yeah,
right. But he was good enough to work for you for all those years, right? I mean, Lane became a bad guy when he went to LSU.
Well,
but
of course.
Did he change? Because he did work for you for a number of years. So he was okay? Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
But, I don't know if this was a joke because Pete Golding came out, the Ole Miss head coach, and said,
yeah, we had a kid on the team. His dad works for the FBI. Check it out. Yeah.
But Walker had said that because Lane Kiffin did take majority or at least half of the staff over to LSU.
Yeah.
Did bring some players over to LSU with him.
Yeah.
Welcome to college football in 2026, right? Between this and Lane Kiffin bringing players from the NFL back to college to play for LSU, would I be on the mark or off the mark for believing that Lane Kiffin is turning LSU into the most hated team in all of sports?
I mean, I'll go college football. So say you're on the mark in college football.
Chris is right.
Kind of.
Which he loves it.
Who's a more hated team, though? I can't think of a more hated team. Maybe the Dodgers in all of sports.
Yeah, I mean, you go around and probably each sport is, I mean, whatever, Dodgers or Yankees. But I think in college football, they love it. You know who's jealous? Texas Tech. Wait a minute. I thought we were the worst. I thought everybody hated us. You can't hate them more. Remember, we had the gambling thing. You guys hate us.
Is it weird that Brendan Sorsby's essentially having to sit out a year while waiting for next year's NFL draft, but we're letting guys who are in the NFL come back to college?
Well, one league didn't let him. One league said no. Yeah.
All right. Moving to the NFL here. Baker Mayfield, entering the final year of his current contract, had a self-imposed deadline, the start of training camp, to get a deal done. That deadline has since come and gone. And after that, Baker said it was, quote, all ball. John Gruden joined Tom Kresnicki on The Drive with T-Kraz on 95.7 WDAE in Tampa and shared some thoughts on Baker's contract situation.
I can't speak like I have any inside scoop, but I will promise you this, they're not very far away. And I would assure Buccaneer fans, this is no distraction for Baker Mayfield whatsoever. This guy is on the rock, man. He is on the bullseye. This guy's really focused, dead set on winning here with Tampa Bay. But I do have a lot of confidence in Jason Light. The Glazers, I think everybody, every party included, wants to get this done. And I think they're a lot closer than people realize, but I would expect it to get done indeed.
A lot closer than people realize.
Mm-hmm.
So, Baker seemed pretty dead set about not wanting to discuss a new contract once his deadline passed. So, would I be on the mark or off the mark for believing that if Gruden is right and the two sides are actually close on a deal, it is only because the Tampa Bay Bucks caved and are going to give him what he's asking for?
I don't think the Bucks are going to cave. John Gruden could look at a piece of molded bread and defend the bread. That bread's tough, man. That mold is moving, but that bread is fighting. It's digging in. It's holding the line. I think that bread's going to overcome the mold.
What you sound like John Madden.
I did. I sounded more like something, but not. I would think John Gruden knows far more than I do. I don't know why you'd cave now if you're the Bucs. You could have caved 3 weeks ago.
Right.
So why would you cave now? Your quarterback situation isn't worse. He's there playing.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why you'd cave is going, you know what? Let's not have him worry about that, and we think this will help him have a great season. I don't know why you would suddenly change.
I don't either. But again, if he is right, I mean, you're giving Baker at least 50 plus a year for what, 2-3 years? 2-3 more years? I don't know.
Now, can I add something?
Yes.
Where he may be right is, do they try to do what they did with Vita Vea? Here's more money this year.
They've already done that, though, essentially last year.
Right. So maybe that, but I'd be stunned if it's here's 3 years with $100+ million guaranteed.
All right. The big story Monday, we talked about it a little bit earlier today. The Browns naming Deshaun Watson the starter. He did make some comments that rubbed the fans the wrong way
It's
over
the
the
world we
weekend.
live in where the Browns naming a starter is a big story. Go ahead. Yeah.
Deshaun Watson did take some time to address those comments on Monday.
You know, I think just, human nature, just myself being very emotional, putting a lot of time these last 2 years to, get back and, spend time in this facility, in the city, meeting a lot of different people in the community. I thought I was going to get, a little different response, but, I think, my emotions got the best of me.
What kind of response were you expecting? You haven't played a full season. You haven't even played half a season in the 3 years you've been there. And this just goes back to the $230 million fully guaranteed, the level of arrogance that you've had, the poor play on the field that you've had, the list of 32 transgressions or 30 plus transgressions against you that you've had. Yeah, you were expecting a different response from the Cleveland Browns fans. He did not apologize. He just said he let his emotions get the best of him, and he accepts full responsibility for what he said. I do still think he's the better option to start for the Browns than Shedeur Sanders. But am I on the mark or off the mark for thinking that no matter what happens this season, it will be Watson's last in Cleveland?
On the mark.
Chris is right.
Does he get another job after this?
Probably, but I mean, the Browns are picking before 9 p.m. on Thursday night of the draft, aren't they? Right? And they're picking before 9 o'clock. Oh, the Dolphins may be picking at 8:20.
Yeah, those could very well be the two worst teams in the league. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. Brett McMurphy releases preseason bowl projections.
Mm-hmm.
He had Florida State making a bowl.
He did. He had him over in Tampa.
Yeah, at the Gasparilla Bowl.
Yeah.
He also had LSU not in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama not in the playoff. He
had Florida playing Oklahoma State, I think.
He
Or
did.
he had the Gators in a bowl. Maybe not.
He had the Gators in a bowl. He also had UCF playing Nebraska in the Cactus Bowl.
Okay. Let me just tell you, there's a better chance of Chris starting for the Cleveland Browns. Not many UCF can't be in a bowl in Nebraska, but the matchup, there's a better chance of Chris starting game 3 when the Browns return home from the 2-game Florida trip. I love Brett, but that ain't going to happen.
It's only
in a playoff, man.
It's only a preseason projection, but would I be on the mark or off the mark for believing that a bowl appearance will likely be enough to save Mike Norvell's job?
Ooh, no.
Really?
Now, a 6-6 up and down, got to a bowl. You're 6-5, lose to Florida by 30 in the final game. No. A 8-4, end of the season, playing better and see pieces that make sense. Sure.
Okay.
Always about the journey, man.
Well,
it's always about the journey.
Well, let's go to your scenario.
Yeah.
6-5 going into the game against Florida, blown out by 30.
He doesn't coach the bowl game.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough one.
That would be 6-6.
Yes.
With your rival rolling you. You tell me how that would convince that group of money people to turn the faucet back on.
that tells me that you went from the 13-1 season that Jordan Travis got hurt.
I don't count the loss, but yeah.
Okay. To a 2-win season the next
Yeah.
year with DJU.
Yep.
To a 5-win season. To a 6-win season. That's however small it is, it's still showing improvement and showing that you're going in the right direction at least.
I mean, you asked me. I'm telling you, 6-5 getting blown out by Florida, he wouldn't coach the bowl game because you would not. You'd have a hard time convincing money people to go now invest back again. I'd be very surprised.
I think that would buy him at least one more year. But
Journey always
mark,
matters.
Off the mark.
The journey always matters. Back to put a wrap on the Tuesday show next. We're out of here. That ended quick. See you tomorrow for the Wednesday show. Chris produced. I'm Marc Daniels, the Beat of Sports.